Hi everybody. In this video we are going to learn about Python variable scopes. We'll start with the local scope. So let's define a function called local scope. This function will just print a message. I'll define a local variable and this says I am inside a function, right? Now let me call this function local scope. Okay, what just happened? Okay, I did not give it here print. Okay, I just say print local variable. Let me rerun this. Local scope, it will just print I am inside a function. So now let's try to access this local variable. See, I defined a variable here called local variable, and let's try to access that variable. Okay, just give me an error saying the local variable is not defined. So here what's happening is any variable I'm defining inside a function is available only until that function is run, right? After that it's not available. So this is basically called local scope. So local scope basically means a variable inside a function is accessible only when the function is called and it is not available outside the function. Right, so this is local scope. Now let's first define one variable. We'll now understand global scope. First define a variable, global variable equal to I am outside a function, right? Let's define another function called global scope, and what we'll do is we'll just print our global variable. Right, let me just run this function. Now let's just call the function global variable. What just happened? String object, sorry, it's not scope, this should be global scope. Okay, so I'm outside the function, so I can access any variable that is defined outside a function. I can access inside it also by saying that if I define a variable once at the top of the file, I can access it in any number of files. That will just define another function. So I just access this using one function. If I define another function, def global scope 1, then again I say print hey, this is global variable. Now I'll just run that. Let me call this function global scope 1. Right, so here this is I am outside a function. So I can use this particular variable in any number of function, but if I define a function variable here inside one function, I cannot use it in another function. That is the local scope, right? So next, now what we do is we'll understand the global keyword thing, right? Or we'll just global keyword thing, and we'll do it by 1 minute. So let's now try to define another variable inside this function called global variable. I'll define the same global variable again, global variable, and I'll just type I am global variable inside a function, right? So let me just copy this entire code. Let me go to new window, right? So what I am doing is I am defining first a global variable outside the function, then inside the function I am defining another global variable, and I am printing it. Let's see what this does, what this function does. So let me just call the function global scope. Okay, this printing I am global variable inside a function. So this is just printing this message. So now does this mean that this global variable outside has been changed to this global variable? Just check that. Let's just try to call the global variable, because we have already said any variable defined inside a function is not accessible outside. But here what I am doing is I am just defining the variable global variable with same name inside a function, and I am changing it, right? So let's see what's just happening. Let me call the variable global variable, sorry, not function. It just happened. Did I run the spelling wrong? Sorry, the spelling is wrong. Right, so this says I am outside the function. So what does this mean is that this variable defined outside the function did not get changed. So this global variable outside the function and global variable inside the function are two different variables. The scope of this global variable inside the function is local scope. That it means that this is only available inside this global scope function, and this is a different function, right? So if you define two variables of the same name, one is outside the function and one is inside the function, then when the function is executed, it's going to always use a variable only that is inside the function, right? So now let us say I want to use this same variable inside, or I want to change that I want to change this particular global variable inside a function, right? And how do we do it? We use a global keyword for that. Right, so we will change the global variable inside the function. Okay, so let me just again copy paste the same code. Just copy paste this code. I'm going to use same code here. So what I'll do here is I'll just use the global keyword global, and I'll say that global variable, this variable global variable is a global keyword. So this basically means I'm just referring this to this variable to this function, this variable inside, means I can now change that outside the inside the function. Let me just run it and let me just call the global scope function. Okay, so this will just print the message as expected. Now let us check if the global variable inside and global variable outside the function are same. Global variable, sorry, not function. What did I miss? Spelling. Right, so you can see here that I am a global variable inside the function. It basically means that we did change this variable from inside the function. So you can always change the global variable from inside the function using the global keyword, right? So next we are going to look into something called local enclosed scope. So this basically is that, I mean, let's just define a function. I'll define a function outside what I want to do is I'll just want to print a message here. All right. Message, it will just say I am in outside function. Okay. So let me define another function inside this function, and I'll just name that function as inside function, and I'll just print a message I am inside, I am in inside function. It will just print the message. So here I'll call this inside function in the outside function, and for the outside function again I am printing the message. So here you can again see I am defining this variable message and message twice. First I am defining here some message saying that I am inside outside function, and later again I am defining the same variable. I'm a variable with same name, and I'm naming it saying it as I am in inside function. So let's see what message this function is going to give. Let me just call outside function. So this gives me two messages. One is I am in inside function, I am in outside function. So this basically means that here the message variable this and message variable this are two different things, right? So the message in the inside function is only in this scope, in the scope of inside function, and the scope of this function is only outside, right? So let us say now I don't define this, and let's say can I access this outside function message to inside function. Let me just comment it out, and let me just print this function. All right, so this prints both I'm outside function, means that if I define a variable in the outside function, and that variable is available in all the functions that I define inside that particular function. In the outside function, if I define any number of functions, that is available in all the functions. So this is not the global variable, right? So this is available to all the enclosing functions, right? So this is what is meant by enclosed scope. If I define a variable in any function and I define some other functions inside it, then the variable in the outermost function is available in all the functions defined inside that outermost function. So now let's say I want to change this message variable inside this inside function. So let's do that. Right, so we'll do that using the non-local keyword. Right, so here we already know if I define a message keyword inside, it will just define new variable. So let me just uncomment this one, message, and we'll define non-local. I'm declaring message as non-local, right? So this means that I'm just saying that this message and this message are both are same thing, right? So I'll just type here I have been changed in inside function, right? So I'll just run this and let me just call the outside function. You can see for both times it printed I've been changed in inside function. So this basically means that the message in the outer function has been, the message variable in the outside function has been modified inside the inside function, so which we could not have done here without using the non-local keyword, right? So using the non-local keyword I can modify the variables in the enclosed scope, right? So now the last scope is built-in scope, right? So there are some functions which you need not define anywhere, like variables or functions. They are already available to you when you run the Python. For example, I started this Jupyter notebook and some functions are basically available to me. So these are called built-in scopes. I can use them anywhere inside the function or in any number of functions. So for example, like print is available to me already just after defining the function. So print, let's say hello. So this is available. So this is called the global keyword, or I can define ID, the word ID. Let me get the ID of our global variable we define, right? So all these things, such kind of, or range functions, so these are called the built-in scopes, right? So thank you. This is with the Python variable scopes. Thank you very much.